Pro-Palestinian protests are spreading like wildfires across college campuses, and some of the most radical leftists are using them to do more than simply attack Israel. Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. As many of you are probably already aware, Israel and Hamas are at war. And if you aren't aware, I call next on that hole in the sand you've been burying your head in. Seems like a nice mental health break we could all use from time to time. The U.S. is currently facing a massive wave of pro-Palestinian protests in universities all across the country.
Across the nation and around the clock. From California to Michigan and along the East Coast, college campuses erupting in protest.
Let them go! Let them go!
Pro-Palestinian demonstrators demanding action, refusing to back down.
Many of these protests came after the protest at Columbia University, which apparently had dancing, like lots of dancing. Protests have also broken out in other countries, including France, Australia, Italy, and the UK. As you might expect, these protesters are against Israel. But what exactly do they hope to accomplish from doing all this, besides letting Israel know they just got served? Now, a lot of attention has been on protesters demanding schools divest from companies with Israeli ties, which is true, but there's a lot more going on than that. For example, Columbia University Apartheid Divest has 5 demands, like divestment, an academic boycott, and for Columbia University to call for a ceasefire in Gaza. But then there are demands that don't seem to have much to do with freeing Palestine, like calling for the university to support low-income housing in Harlem. I'll explain what's going on with that later in the episode. But if you're confused about these protests, you're not the only one, including some of the protesters themselves.
And what would you say is the main goal with tonight's protest?
I think the goal is just showing our support for Palestine and demanding that NYU stops. I honestly don't know all of what NYU's doing.
Is there something that NYU's doing?
I really don't know. I'm pretty sure they're... Do you know what NYU's doing? About what? About Israel. Why are we protesting here?
Palestine will be free!
I wish I was more educated. I'm not either.
You know, a lot of people are making fun of her, but I actually find her honesty refreshing. Because it turns out a lot of people don't know what they're actually demanding. You've probably heard protesters chanting, "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free." Hey, it's catchy. But what does that really mean? A professor at Berkeley hired a survey firm to poll students on the slogan. After being shown a map, a majority of the students went from supporting the slogan to rejecting it. That's because they realized it would basically eliminate Israel. So it's not great that people are going around chanting things without understanding what they're actually saying. Now, I'm not trying to bash people who have pro-Palestinian views, or say that being pro-Palestine is the same as being pro-Hamas or anti-Semitic. Hating all Palestinian supporters over Hamas is like hating all white women over Taylor Swift. Speaking of white women, the Free Press visited the Columbia University protest and called it a communist Coachella, full of things like paint your nails for Palestine.
Free, free Palestine! Free, free, free Palestine! Free, free, free Palestine!
What I saw can be best described as a socialist summer camp. They say it's all about Gaza, it's all about Palestine, but it was really giving Coachella.
First of all, communist Coachella sounds terrible. No one wants to see these guys in festival wear. But socialist summer camp sounds kind of fun. Swimming, archery, roasting white oppressor marshmallows over the campfire. A lot of students are probably joining these protests, at least partly because it's fun. But it's not all interpretive dancing about being tangled in the red string of late-stage capitalism. Unsurprisingly, many in the mainstream media are quick to point out that the pro-Palestinian protests are largely peaceful, although these are the same media who claim certain BLM protests were fiery but mostly peaceful. But the ones that aren't peaceful really aren't peaceful. There are plenty of instances of protesters trying to keep Jewish students out from protest encampments, which, to be honest, is kind of a relief that they don't want Jews in camps. But there are also people openly endorsing terrorists and attacks against Jews.
We are Hamas!
You're Hamas, wow. That's a good one. You're what? You're Hamas?
Yes, we're all Hamas, eh?
Long live Hamas! Kill all violence! Kill all violence!
God bless Hamas! God bless Hamas!
That is about to be every day. Every day.
Don't worry, this powder keg waiting to blow is mostly peaceful. Hamas and Iran are loving it. Clearly, there is genuine anti-Semitism among certain protesters. But there's something else going on here too. I'll tell you more after the break. Welcome back. So there's more to these protests than just simply criticism against Israel, and it goes way deeper than just anti-Semitism. These pro-Palestine protests are mostly leftist. But it's not just people who are liberal or progressive. It turns out full-blown Marxists are using these pro-Palestine protests to push for radical leftist revolution. At an NYU protest, the Free Press saw equipment supplied by the People's Forum, a radical leftist organization funded by a Marxist millionaire with ties to the Chinese Communist Party. In that interview with the confused protester, you can see someone in the back holding up a sign for the Party for Socialism and Liberation, which is an American communist party. These Marxist activists are feeding the oppressor versus oppressed narrative to sympathetic college students because they consider Palestinians part of the oppressed class. Anything and everything done against those classified as the oppressor is completely justified. This line of reasoning can easily lead to dehumanization, and for communists, that's a feature, not a bug. This mindset has had a major influence in giving pro-Palestinian advocates justification for violence. According to this article on Palestinian solidarity, armed struggle is the only way forward for Palestinians, and it will mean the death of many Israelis. Who cares if that's anti-Semitic? Yep, there's no other way than violence, and you're totally in the right no matter what you do, as long as you're oppressed and doing it to the oppressors. It's kind of like how Gandhi said, an eye for an eye ain't enough, rip out their nostrils too. This essay was one of several being passed out at the University of Michigan protest. When October 7th happened, also known as Operation Al-Aqsa Flood, some leftists called it an act of decolonization. This was another essay passed out at the University of Michigan. It goes on to quote Brazilian Marxist Paulo Freire, saying that the oppressed are never the initiators of violence because they are the victims of violence. Let's not forget that Hamas committed atrocious acts, including rape, in its October 7th attack on Israeli civilians. Yet somehow we have people cheering for Hamas as some sort of role model. That's not something people should be proud of. But the writings of these Marxist activists are not only justifying violence, they're calling for more violence. Again, these are being passed out on American college campuses. Most people think solidarity means supporting a cause, but these activists argue that to have true solidarity with Palestine, people have to get rid of the United States. Another pamphlet from the University of Michigan says freedom for Palestine means death to America. Remember the good old days when teens hated their parents and instead of calling for death to America, they just shopped at Hot Topic? Yes, we're seeing a lot of calls for death to America, and it isn't just because of its support for Israel. People who believe in Marxist ideas see connections between the struggles of different oppressed groups in society, meaning that African Americans, the LGBT community, and Palestinians all have a common cause against oppressors. Boy, it sure is a good thing that Hamas, which controls Gaza, would never oppress the LGBTQ community. And in the eyes of Marxists, the biggest oppressor of all is the US. That's why, within our lifetime, one of the outside groups involved in the pro-Palestine Columbia protests believes that it has a responsibility to resist the US empire. Some of these protests are also calling for a complete dismantling of the US in order to pave way for a socialist utopia.
There is only one solution: Intifada revolution. We must have revolution so we can have a socialist reconstruction of the United States of America.
In their Marxist worldview, Hamas's attack on Israel is paving the way for all oppressed groups worldwide.
Let it be known that it was the Al-Aqsa flood that put the global intifada back on the table again. And it is the sacrificial spirit of the Palestinian freedom fighters that will guide every struggle on every corner of the earth to victory.
Not sure how accepting Hamas would be with trans flags just because they're supporting Palestine. Pretty sure they just helped transition these people from alive to dead. As of this past weekend, over 800 people have been arrested as part of these protests. So, what happens now? There are certainly some people who are looking to escalate conflict, especially as most schools in the US are ending their semesters soon. Organizers from Yale and Columbia published a guide titled "First We Take Columbia," listing lessons learned from anti-Vietnam War protesters. The guide notes that occupations draw strength from the specter of a riot, and that outside agitators need to be welcomed in, unless of course they're Jewish. This sounds like leaders of pro-Palestinian protesters are anticipating and looking for escalation, such as a police crackdown. That way, if there's an overreaction, pro-Palestinian protesters and Marxists can claim police brutality, make themselves look like victims, and spread their ideology in society. Left-wing activists did a similar thing during the Black Lives Matter protests after George Floyd's death to push radical progressive policies like defunding the police. And we all know how that turned out. Great, if you're a criminal. On the other hand, if there isn't an overreaction from the authorities, then the Marxist protesters would have to escalate the violence themselves, and that could cause them to lose support. Either way, the tensions over the Israel-Hamas conflict won't be ending anytime soon, and the best way to deal with the heat might just be with some cool sand while taking an extended mental health break. Here at America Uncovered, we do our best to present the facts and let you draw your own conclusions. But I can't afford to keep making the show without your support on the crowdfunding website patreon.com/AmericaUncovered. All it takes is $1 an episode. I usually make about 12 episodes a month, but if that's too much for you, you can always set a monthly limit. You can even help me uncover America for just $1 a month. Just click on this orange button to support the show. And please, click this video I want to show you from my new show, Deep Thoughts While Gaming. It's time to get offended. Video game characters are getting too sexy. That's why I'm so offended by the very popular hit new game, Stellar Blade. Let me know what you think. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thanks for watching America Uncovered.